At her boss's house, among glasses of champagne, my wife touched his hands, and I did something that shocked everyone. The first time I actually saw it, what I'd later call the crack in the glass, it wasn't loud. No big argument. No shouting or storming out. Just a watch. A stupid, scuffed-up man's watch sitting on the dresser in our bedroom. Like it belonged there. I had just come home from a short trip to Dallas. 2 days, nothing major. Just a client meeting and an overnight stay in a basic hotel that smelled like air freshener and worn-out carpet. I got in a little before sunset. The air was still warm, typical Austin, and I remember thinking how quiet the house felt when I walked through the front door. The kind of quiet that's just a little too quiet, like someone had hit pause. I called out, "Hey, I'm back." But my voice sounded weird in the space, like it didn't belong there. Sarah didn't answer right away. Her car was in the driveway, the lights were on, and the place didn't feel empty, but it felt different. Not messy, not off in any obvious way, just like something had shifted while I was gone. I dropped my overnight bag in the hallway and wandered upstairs to our bedroom. That's when I saw it. The watch was sitting on top of her jewelry box. Not hidden. Not tucked away in a drawer or forgotten under a blanket. Just lying there in plain sight like it had every right to be. Leather strap worn down, stitching frayed, and a little scratch over the glass face like it had seen some years. It wasn't mine. I don't even wear watches unless I'm at a wedding or a job interview, and even then, it's one of those cheap, clean ones from Target. Definitely not this. For a second, I just stared at it. My first thought was, whose is this? But right behind that came another. Why is it here? And then the worst one, why didn't she bother to hide it? I didn't hear her coming up the stairs. She walked in carrying a laundry basket like she hadn't seen me in days, which she hadn't, but you wouldn't know it by the look on her face. No hug, no smile, just a "hey, you're back," and a glance at the dresser. I watched her eyes land on the watch. She didn't freeze, didn't flinch, just kept walking, set the basket down by the bed, and said, "Oh, that's probably the handyman's. He was here last week to fix the closet door. Must have left it." Just like that. Smooth. Like she'd said it 100 times before. Like she was ready for this moment. But we don't have a handyman. We never have. That closet door doesn't even have a problem. It slides fine. I would have noticed. Hell, if we had someone over while I was gone, she usually mentions it. Not because she has to, but because that's always been our rhythm. We check in. We update. We share the little stuff. And now, apparently, we don't. She walked right past me like the whole thing wasn't a big deal. I stayed standing there, looking at that watch like it had answers. But it didn't. It just sat there, silent, ordinary, and completely out of place. I could have asked more questions. What handyman? When? But I didn't. And I think that says more than anything else. Because a part of me already knew. Not the details, not the full truth. But I knew enough to realize that asking would turn the page into a new chapter one wasn't ready to read. Not yet. Instead, I mumbled, "Huh, weird," and followed her into the hallway, pretending like I believed her. But in my chest, something tightened. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I brushed my teeth beside her, watched her pull her hair back, put on that lotion she always uses that smells like vanilla and summer. She looked like the same woman I'd married. Worn pajama shirt, bare feet, hair in a messy bun. But I couldn't stop seeing the stranger who left a watch on my dresser. She climbed into bed and asked if I was tired. I lied and said I was. We turned the lights off. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, while she drifted off like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. And the thing is, the watch wasn't even the beginning. Not really. Looking back, I can see all the little things I'd ignored for months. Subtle shifts in our routine. Words unsaid. Glances too quick to catch unless you were already suspicious. But the watch, that was the moment I couldn't unsee. I thought about how confident she was. How quickly she had an answer. That's what stuck with me more than anything. Not the object itself, but how ready she was. It wasn't confusion on her face. It wasn't even guilt. It was calculation, deflection, like she'd already run through this scene in her head. It hit me then. She wasn't explaining. She was managing. And maybe that's the moment something inside me cracked. I didn't sleep much. Just lay there listening to the soft sound of her breathing beside me, wondering who the hell she'd become, and what else I didn't know. I couldn't stop picturing her in this house while I was gone, walking around like everything was normal, while that watch, his watch, sat on our dresser like a middle finger I wasn't supposed to notice. Was he here? Did he sit on this bed? Did he drink coffee from one of our mugs? Did he laugh at our inside jokes, the ones she probably recycled to make him feel special? I hated that my mind went there. I didn't want it to, but once you see the first crack, the rest start to show. You just have to be willing to look. I thought about asking her again in the morning, bringing it up casually, seeing if the story changed. But when I woke up, she was already downstairs, making eggs like nothing had happened. She smiled when I came into the kitchen, kissed me on the cheek, called me babe, her usual routine, but now it felt rehearsed, like I was watching someone act out a part she'd grown too comfortable playing. I sat at the table and watched her pour coffee, and I realized I didn't know what was real anymore. That's the part no one prepares you for. It's not the betrayal itself. It's the unraveling of everything you thought was solid. You start re-examining every memory, every conversation, every I love you that once felt sacred. Was it all fake? Or did it only become fake after a certain point? And then you ask the worst question of all. How long have I been in the dark? The watch sat there all day. She didn't touch it, didn't move it, just left it like it was invisible. But I saw it every time I walked past the bedroom. Eventually, I picked it up, turned it over, looking for something. An engraving, a clue, anything. Nothing. Just a generic leather band and a ticking reminder that I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I felt. That night, I went to the guest room, told her I was having trouble sleeping and didn't want to keep her up. She didn't argue, didn't even ask why. That silence? That was the second red flag. Because when someone you love suddenly starts sleeping in another room, and you don't even ask why, you already know. That night, lying alone in the guest room, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning in 1,000 directions. The hum of the ceiling fan, the faint creak of the house settling. It all felt louder somehow. Too loud. Like the silence between Sarah and me had seeped into the walls and started screaming. I couldn't stop thinking about that watch. I tried to tell myself it didn't mean anything, that it could still be innocent, that maybe I was overreacting. But deep down I knew. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows fast. Like a weed. You can't pull it out without tearing up the soil underneath. And so I started pulling. I began tracing back the last few months. Every strange moment, every shift in tone, every story that didn't quite add up. It was like flipping through a photo album and suddenly seeing what you'd missed before. There were signs scattered everywhere. I had just been too in love or too trusting to connect the dots. I remembered the weekend trips. She started taking them maybe 3, 4 months ago. They'd always pop up suddenly. Last-minute meetings, she'd say, at conferences that always seemed to land on Fridays. At first, I didn't question it. Sarah was ambitious, always chasing the next promotion. Her job at the agency came with high expectations and late nights. I respected that about her. I still do, in a way. But the pattern started to shift. Her phone used to light up constantly with emails and messages, and she'd share everything. Now it was silent, always flipped over, always locked. And at some point, without warning, she changed her password. Both her phone and her laptop. I'd noticed it once when she left her phone on the counter, and it buzzed. I reached for it without thinking, just to hand it to her, and it was locked. Face ID disabled. New code. She laughed it off when I asked, saying she had to change it for work. Security protocols. Sounded official. Reasonable. I didn't push. I should have pushed. Then there were the receipts. Literal receipts. One night, while tossing an old bag of hers in the laundry bin, a folded piece of paper fell out. It was from a restaurant halfway across town. A place I'd never been, never heard her mention. Some fancy wine bar in East Austin. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, a late-night timestamp. She claimed it was from a client dinner. I believed her, because I wanted to, but as I lay in that guest bed, staring at nothing, those little pieces rearranged themselves into something new. Pattern. A trail. And the trail led me somewhere I didn't want to go. Her clothes smelled different lately. That was another thing. She'd come home late, later than usual. Not trashed, not sloppy, just loose. Relaxed in a way that didn't match the stories. Her eyes were soft. A little too soft. Her lipstick would still be perfect, but her perfume would be faint, like it had been reapplied. Like it was hiding something else. Something heavier. Once, I caught a whiff of something that wasn't hers at all, something musky. Not cologne I recognized. That night, she claimed she'd stopped by a coworker's birthday party on the way home. Everyone was hugging, she said, laughing. I probably brushed up against someone. And I nodded, smiled, said, "Makes sense." Didn't. And I knew it. Another night, she came home while I was still up watching TV. She jumped when she saw me, not like someone startled, more like someone caught. She said, "You scared me," and gave me a quick kiss on the forehead, already walking past. She reeked of wine, but not the kind we kept in the house. I followed her into the kitchen and asked, "How was dinner?" She blinked, like she didn't expect the question. "Oh yeah, it was good. Just Thai with Marcy and Lena." Thing is, I knew Lena was out of town that weekend. She'd posted pictures from Chicago earlier that day. I didn't mention it. I just nodded. That's what scared me most, that I'd become someone who nodded instead of asking. I wasn't even pretending to believe her anymore. I was just too afraid of the answer. I used to trust her with my whole heart. And now I was scanning her voice for cracks like some kind of human lie detector. The next few days I started paying more attention. Quietly. I didn't snoop through her phone. I wasn't there yet. But I watched. I listened. I noticed how often she smiled when she texted. How quickly she would put her phone down when I walked in the room. How she started saying things like, "You wouldn't know him," when talking about her coworkers. That phrasing, it stuck with me. You wouldn't know him. Not they, not the team. Just him. There was always a him now, even if I couldn't see his face yet. And the distance between us, it kept growing. We weren't fighting, not exactly. There were no big blowouts. Just this creeping coldness. We used to stay up late talking, our legs tangled under the sheets, laughing about stupid things. Now we barely spoke at all in bed. She'd scroll through her phone, turn her back, and say, "Good night. Love you." Like she was reading a line from a script. And me? I'd whisper, "Love you too," knowing full well she was already gone. Not physically, but somewhere else. I started going back through my memories with a fine-toothed comb. Not looking for what I'd missed, but trying to understand how I'd missed it. The weekend she said she was at a retreat in San Antonio, but I couldn't get a hold of her for nearly 24 hours. Bad reception, she claimed. No service out there. But a week later, I saw a selfie on her iPad she forgot to delete. Her in a mirror, full makeup, cocktail dress, a skyline behind her that was clearly not San Antonio. I never brought it up. I told myself it was old. Maybe she just saved it weird. I told myself a lot of things. But the doubt had started to live in me. Parasite. It wasn't just suspicion, it was corrosion. It ate at the way I looked at her, at myself, at our marriage. And that night, with all the lights off and the city outside humming like it always does, I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who I was married to anymore. And even worse, I wasn't sure I ever really had. I always thought that if something like this ever happened to me, it would come in a dramatic moment. Some kind of explosion. A shouting match. A confrontation. Something unmistakable. But the truth didn't hit me like lightning. It arrived on a Wednesday. Quiet. Clinical. Sarah had mentioned that morning she'd be home late again. Client dinner, she said. The words were so casual, so expected by now, that I barely reacted. Just nodded, sipping my coffee, wondering if she even realized how routine her lies had become, or how much I'd stopped pretending to believe them. But something about the way she said it that morning felt different. Too smooth. Too deliberate. I waited until she left, then went upstairs and opened the drawer where we kept the emergency cash. It was still there. That's how I knew I hadn't gone crazy yet, because there was still a part of me that checked for the basics. I wasn't looking for proof of cheating, not right away. I was looking for proof that the world still made sense. That afternoon, I couldn't focus on anything. I sat in my home office, emails piling up, pretending to work while my thoughts spiraled. I kept going back to all the signs, the patterns, the stories that didn't quite line up, the laughs I heard through the walls when she was on the phone and thought I wasn't listening, the perfume she wore only on nights she was supposedly meeting clients. I kept asking myself the same question. What would I do if I knew for sure? Because suspicion is one thing, but proof, that changes everything. So that evening, when the sun dipped below the rooftops and the streetlights blinked on one by one, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I got in my car and drove to her office. She told me the dinner was with a client visiting from out of state, that they were meeting at the office first, then heading to some restaurant downtown. I figured if I caught them before they left, I'd finally get a glimpse of the man she kept behind the curtain. But when I pulled into the lot, I knew something was off. The building was dark. Not just quiet, dark. No cars, no lights, no sign of life. Not even the cleaning crew. I checked the time. 7:22 p.m. If there was a meeting, it wasn't happening here. I sat in my car for a while, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to call her. Another part wanted to drive straight home and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But the part of me that had been silently braking for weeks, that part refused to sit still. So I pulled out of the lot and started driving. I didn't know where I was going. Not exactly. I just knew the parts of the city she seemed to frequent lately. The bars on the east side. The trendy wine spots that popped up on her receipts. The ones she said were work-related. And then I saw her car, parked just off the main road outside a bar I'd only ever driven past. It wasn't one of her usual places. Not the kind of spot you take a client. Not the kind of spot you go alone, either. I parked half a block away and walked up slowly, staying out of view. The windows were open. Music drifted out onto the sidewalk. I peered through the glass, and there she was, sitting in a booth near the window, drink in hand, smiling. With him. I didn't recognize him. He was around our age, maybe a little younger. Clean cut, casual button-down shirt. His body leaned in toward hers like they shared a secret language. Her hand rested lightly on his forearm, and when he laughed at something she said, she smiled like I hadn't seen her smile in months. That's the part that gutted me the most. Not the touching, not the drinks, the smile. It wasn't professional. It wasn't friendly. It was soft, familiar, mate. The kind of smile that belongs in a quiet bedroom at midnight or a road trip at sunrise. The kind you give someone when you think the world has faded around you. She'd given that smile to me once. Now it belonged to him. I didn't storm in. I didn't throw open the door and demand answers. I stood outside, frozen, watching her hand move slowly up his arm, watching him brush a strand of hair from her face like it was the most natural thing in the world. I wanted to scream, but instead, I took out my phone and hit record. Later that night, after she got home, late as promised, I sat in bed pretending to be half asleep. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "Sorry it ran long." Client wouldn't stop talking. I nodded, said nothing. My stomach churned. I got up when she fell asleep and went to the living room, pacing. The doubt was gone now. I had what I needed. But there was a second part of me, the one that needed to be sure, not just emotionally but logistically. So I opened the home security app on my phone. We had a front porch camera. I hadn't looked at it in weeks. She said it drained her battery and made her feel like we lived in a prison. But I'd left it running. Quietly, I scrolled through the saved clips for that evening. And there it was. 9:13 p.m. Her car pulls up. She steps out. He steps out after her. They stand by the driver's side door, talking, laughing. Then he leans in, kisses her on the cheek. Her hand slips to his waist. They hug too long, too close. Then she looks around, checking the street, the windows. She kisses him. Quick, but not quick enough. and the camera caught all of it. That was the moment it became real. Not just a theory, not a maybe, not something I could gaslight myself out of. Proof. Undeniable. I sat on the couch watching that clip on a loop. The timestamp burned into my brain. Every second that passed was like watching my marriage erode in real time. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there with the weight of it pressing down on my chest. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Somewhere deep down, I'd been waiting for this, hoping I was wrong, but knowing I wasn't. I saved the footage, made backups, uploaded it to the cloud. Not because I planned to confront her right away, but because I knew what came next would require patience. Timing. She had lied so easily, so confidently. I wasn't going to give her another opportunity to twist the truth. I needed her to feel the full weight of it. So I waited. I acted normal. I said goodnight when she said it first. I kissed her forehead. I poured her coffee. I laughed at her small talk. All while I carried the knowledge in my back pocket like a loaded *P***N. She thought I didn't know. That was her biggest mistake. After that night, nothing about the house felt the same. Same walls, same furniture, same routines, but all of it had been hollowed out like someone had taken a chisel to the life we built and quietly scraped away the parts that used to mean something. Sarah moved through the space like she always had, but now, every laugh sounded rehearsed. Every glance had a shadow behind it, and every kiss on the cheek felt like it belonged to a stranger. But I didn't say a word, because I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. Some part of me still wanted to believe it could be undone. That maybe she'd wake up one morning, break down in tears, confess everything, and beg for forgiveness. Not because I would have given it, but because that would have at least meant she felt something. But no, she kept lying. Smoothly, effortlessly, and in that performance I saw who she really was. So I stopped waiting for the truth, and started preparing for the reveal. The first thing I did was back everything up. Every file, every recording, every receipt I could get my hands on. The home security clip, saved on 3 drives, one in my car, one in the safe, one in the cloud. The footage from the bar, stored with a timestamp overlay. I even took *TS of her texts when she left her phone unlocked for 30 seconds too long on the counter. One message read, "I had a dream about you last night. Don't laugh. It was nice waking up with a smile again. Not from me. Not about me." She signed it with a heart. I logged locations from her rideshare receipts. Made a spreadsheet. It felt insane, like I was planning a lawsuit, but I wasn't trying to win anything. I just wanted the truth to speak for itself. I started reviewing old emails too. Shared calendars, vacation requests, anything that had seemed off at the time. I even compared a few of her business trips against her Instagram archive. Turns out one of her team-building weekends overlapped with the guy's birthday. I only knew that because she had once mentioned it in passing. He was just a guy from finance. But there he was, tagged in a photo from a rooftop lounge 3 cities away. She wasn't even careful. That almost hurt more than the cheating itself. She didn't even respect me enough to hide it well. Still, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't even flinch when she leaned her head on my shoulder one night while we watched a movie, as if we were still the couple we used to be. Because I wasn't waiting for her to feel guilty anymore. I was waiting for my moment. See, betrayal is a lot like fire. If you run at it blindly, all you get is burned. But if you contain it, if you watch where it spreads and understand the pattern, you can control the damage. And I wanted to control exactly when and where that damage landed. I started thinking about where she felt safest, where she let her guard down the most. It wasn't home. She was more careful here now, more cautious. Maybe she sensed something had changed in me. Maybe she just didn't care. Either way, I could see it in the way she avoided eye contact a little more, smiled a little less, double-checked her phone before speaking. But at work, that was her kingdom. She was well-liked there, confident, respected. People listened when she spoke. She was charming when she wanted to be and cold when she needed to be, and that made her dangerous. Her boss adored her. They'd worked together for years, had dinners, events, the occasional weekend function. I'd met him a few times. Nice guy. Oblivious. Then one night, Over dinner, she casually mentioned an upcoming reception. My boss is hosting a thing at his house next weekend, she said. You'll come, right? I nodded. Of course. And right then I knew. That would be it. The setting. The stage. The final scene. I spent the days leading up to the event pretending to be fine. I asked about the menu, helped her pick out a dress, told her she looked beautiful when she tried it on in front of the mirror, because she did. That's the part people don't talk about. You can be furious with someone, betrayed, broken, but that doesn't mean you stop loving them instantly. That kind of thing fades in pieces, not all at once. I practiced the reveal in my head a dozen different ways. Thought about printing photos, making a speech, sliding an envelope across the table like in a bad drama. But everything felt too small, too quiet. I wanted clarity. I wanted the moment to be loud in the way silence could never be again. So I decided I'd use the one thing she never saw coming. The truth in front of everyone who believed in her. The night of the event, she dressed like nothing was wrong. Hair done, heels on, lipstick perfect. She even asked me to zip up her dress, the way she always had before a night out. I did it without flinching, without shaking, because my hands weren't the ones hiding anything. We drove in silence for a bit. She talked about work, about who'd be there. It's mostly a networking thing, she said, but not too formal. Just smile, be charming, and drink something expensive. I smiled. You got it. We arrived at the house around 7. It was exactly what I expected. Large, clean, high-end without trying too hard. Wine glasses clinking. Soft jazz in the background. People talking in half-whispers about campaigns and growth strategy. Sarah lit up in that environment. Everyone greeted her like she was the guest of honor. She thrived in rooms like that, and that's why it was the perfect place to bring it all crashing down. I mingled. I smiled. I played the role. Then, about an hour in, I stepped away from the crowd and found the host's living room. Big space. Clean sightlines. Mounted TV on the wall above the fireplace. A few people were already lounging inside, sipping their drinks. I took out a small USB drive from my coat pocket, plugged it into the back of the screen. Then I walked away, back into the crowd, and waited. 5 minutes later I heard it. The gasps, the pause in conversation, the clink of a dropped glass. People started funneling into the living room. I followed behind them slowly, calmly, as if I didn't know what was going on. On the screen, the footage played. Security cam, date stamped. There was Sarah, laughing, touching, kissing. And there was him, the same man from the bar. Same face, same shirt. I turned to look at her. She was standing near her boss, who had gone pale. Her smile vanished. She reached for the remote instinctively, but someone else already had it. She whispered, "What is this?" But no one answered, because no one needed to. Everything was right there, undeniable. The room fell silent. I didn't say a word, didn't gloat, didn't yell. I just looked at her and gave the smallest nod. This is what truth looks like. She turned to me, her voice barely audible. "John." But I was already walking away. Not out of rage. Out of freedom. I didn't leave the house right away. I stepped outside onto the patio, the air still holding the last heat of the day. Voices murmured behind me inside the house. Some shocked, some just awkwardly quiet. I could picture it all without looking. The wide-eyed stares, the tilted wine glasses, the slow realization rippling through a room full of people who thought they knew her. People she had charmed for years. And Sarah standing frozen in the center of it. She always did hate losing control. I leaned on the railing and stared out over the yard. It was beautiful manicured hedges, a small fountain, those little solar lights planted like runway markers. The kind of life she always wanted to be part of. She used to talk about hosting parties like this someday. Dinners with crystal glasses, catered meals, soft music playing in the background. Funny how she got what she wanted, just not in the way she imagined. I stayed out there for maybe 10 minutes, long enough for the chaos inside to settle into something quieter. Tension thick like smoke. Then I stepped back through the glass doors, calm, measured. All eyes turned. I could see the pause in their conversations, the way they took a half step back to give me space. There were maybe 30 people in the room. Co-workers, executives, people she respected, people who respected her. I watched one of them set his drink down and excuse himself without making eye contact. Another woman whispered something to the person beside her and left the room entirely. And Sarah? She was sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, face in her hands. Her boss stood nearby, not saying anything, just watching her. His expression was unreadable, but you could tell the gears were turning. Calculating. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes locked on mine. "John," she said softly, voice cracking. What was that? What are you doing?" I didn't answer at first. I took a few steps into the room, not rushing it. I wanted her to feel every second of it. Not out of cruelty, but because she needed to feel it. The reality, the consequence, the wall she'd built between us collapsing in public. "You lied," I said, my voice even. "Over and over. I gave you every opportunity to come clean." "I was going to," she blurted. "I just don't," I said, not sharply but with finality. "You had your chance. You chose this." The room was dead silent. Her boss shifted awkwardly, clearly unsure whether to intervene or pretend he wasn't involved. The others were quieter. Some averted their eyes. Others stared like they were watching a movie unfold in real time. And in a way they were. I turned slightly, addressing no one and everyone at once. I wasn't planning to say anything tonight. I really wasn't. But when someone builds their image around loyalty and professionalism, when they walk around holding other people to high standards, it's only fair that they be held to those same standards. Sarah's face went red. "John, please. You brought him home," I said, quieter now, just for her. "To our house. While I was away. You looked into my eyes and lied. Every day. For months." "I made a mistake," she said, tears now spilling. "I got lost, No, I cut in. You made choices. Mistakes are accidents. This was deliberate. You knew what you were doing." There was no shouting, no name-calling, just silence, thick and electric. One of her co-workers, some guy I barely knew, thin with glasses, shifted uncomfortably and said, "Maybe we should give them a minute." Sarah shook her head. "No, let him talk. He deserves to talk." Her voice trembled, but I could see the flickers of defense starting to creep in. The quiet calculation behind her eyes. She was searching for a narrative, something to grab onto, but she couldn't find it, because this wasn't her story anymore. "You always said truth was non-negotiable," I said, my tone now cold. "That honesty was the only way to build something real, so I'm just giving you what you claimed to believe in." She opened her mouth to speak again, but her boss raised a hand. "Sarah," he said gently, "I think you should take some time off, effective immediately." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what? No, this is personal. It's between me and—" "Your personal life crossed the line when it walked into this room on a screen in front of your colleagues," he said, his voice low but firm. "I don't know the full story. I don't want to. But right now we need space. For everyone's sake." Sarah stood up too fast, her drink toppling onto the carpet. She didn't notice. Her voice cracked, and she looked around the room, desperate for an ally. "Please, someone. You all know me. This isn't who I am." But no one spoke. Her boss gave her a nod, signaling it was time to go. A couple people looked down into their glasses. One woman gave her a tight, polite smile and walked out the front door. I didn't move. I watched as Sarah gathered her purse, her hands shaking. When she passed me, she stopped. "You didn't have to do it like this," she whispered. "No," I said. "But you did. That was it." She left the room, heels clicking sharply across the floor, breath catching in her throat. The door closed behind her. The moment after was strange. I expected to feel some kind of relief, maybe even triumph. But there was none of that. Just a deep, steady ache. A hollow space in my chest where something used to live. I turned to the host, her boss. "I'll let myself out," I said. He nodded. "I'm sorry you had to do this." I paused. "No. I'm sorry I had to know how far she'd fall." I walked out without another word. The sky was darker now, stars hiding behind clouds. I slid into the driver's seat and sat there for a while before starting the engine. My hands were steady, my breath calm, but inside, I felt like I just buried something. Maybe I had. On the way home, I passed a bakery we used to visit on Sundays. She loved the place. They had this cinnamon coffee she'd drink too fast and always burn her tongue. I almost pulled in out of habit, but instead I kept driving. When I got home, the house felt colder. Empty, but not in a peaceful way. Like it hadn't processed what had happened yet. Her things were still everywhere. Her slippers by the bed, the sweater tossed over the couch, a mug with her lipstick print still on the rim. For a moment, I just stood in the entryway, staring at it all. Felt fake now. A museum of a life that didn't exist anymore. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a manila envelope from the drawer, and started filling it with the printed photos, receipts, copies of messages. Not because I needed her to see them, I already knew she wouldn't really look, but because I wanted it all in one place. Neat, final. I placed it on the kitchen table beside her keys. Then I took a pen and wrote 4 words across the back of the top photo. "You made your choice." I stared at the sentence for a long time. Then I went upstairs, packed a single duffel bag, grabbed my jacket, and walked out the door without looking back. Sarah's world crumbled fast. Her colleagues distanced themselves, her boss suspended her, and whispers followed her everywhere. At home, she swung between denial and desperate apologies. But nothing she said could undo what she'd done. I ignored her texts, her tears, her pleading. It was over. The respect was gone. All that remained was a cold silence between us. A silence louder than any fight we'd ever had. At sunrise, I left. Just me, a bag, and the peace I hadn't felt in months. I blocked her number, left the envelope on the table, and drove to a friend's place 2 hours away. Her messages kept coming. Rage, regret, bargaining, but I didn't answer. I wasn't hers to reach anymore. What once felt like a collapse now felt like a release. And as the road stretched ahead, so did something else, freedom.